I'm Jason with the All Things Open team. I'm here with Lee. We're going to talk about Agentic AI, teaching technology, and much more. Lee, please introduce yourself to the All Things Open community.
Jason, it is so happy to see you. I know we've had many conversations over the years working together at Red Hat. My name's Lee Faus. I am Global Field CTO at GitLab. Been there for almost 4 years now, working with executives, helping them understand Git, what GitLab does, why developer experience is important, how AI is helping them, how it could be hurting them. So lots of things going on in the space right now.
Sounds like full spectrum, as it always is. Well, I understand you're passionate about Agentic AI. Want to get right into it. You're also passionate about data-driven engineering. So what excites you about those topics and why is it important to you?
Yeah, so data-driven engineering is something that has really creeped up over probably the last 2 to 3 years. So there's a couple of areas. One of the big areas is a movement around something called FinOps. So this is how do I get my revenue team, how did I get them interested in why am I even building software in the first place? So if you think about everything that happens in the software development process, it's all about managing change. And change can happen for the good and change can happen for the bad. And without measuring how good or how bad or how risky or understanding how many security vulnerabilities I have or did I complete my entire test plan, without having that data, it's really hard to manage that change effectively. And now with AI coming on the scene, we're hearing a lot of conversations about developer productivity. And when I go in and talk to executives, they're like, oh yeah, we want AI because I want developer productivity. And I'm like, great. So how do you measure productivity today? And they look around the room.
It's like a blank fail. They're like, hey, how are we measuring this, right?
Yeah. So I teach them how to use FinOps and think about how they spend per change. And then we talk about what AI does to be able to accelerate the change and how to provide guardrails for the change. In GitLab, we have what's called a merge request, and this is where the development teams work together to be able to manage that change. So the security team comes in, product management comes in, the developers, this is where their change occurs, and they collaborate on that change. It's where code reviews happen. And if that merge request is open for more than 3 days, they have to explain it to the finance team. Why is it open for 3 days? So if it's open for longer than that, that's something that we haven't gotten in the hands of our users. So that could be a bug that's keeping them from being a happy customer. It could be a sales engagement that we're trying to close a customer. It could be something in the community that's keeping people from onboarding more people onto GitLab. So we want to make sure that we're keeping a consistent, steady rate of change throughout the entire system.
It's really fascinating. Well, let's talk more about Agentic AI. How would someone get started? Well, to explain it to someone who doesn't know, and then how would someone get started?
Yeah, so there's 2 areas that you're going to hear around the Agentic AI. You're going to hear about assistants, and you're going to hear about agents. There was a great blog post by a lady who works at IBM. I forget what her name is. She did a great analogy. If you think about having an assistant, what you do is you have to give them a set of tasks. So, hey, could you make reservations at this restaurant? Hey, could you help me with this change inside my software process? So you're leading the conversation. When you think about an agent, think about a sports agent. A sports agent knows what your value is. So what it's going to do is it has parameters that it's allowed to work within. So, hey, I want you to go ahead and I want more money next year. Okay, well, how much money would you like? Then the agent behind the scenes does all of the work. They don't come back to the player and go ahead and try to determine, hey, is this good enough, whatever. They have a number that they're supposed to get to, and then once they get there, then they'll bring you in for the final approval. So that's really the big difference. Where am I bringing the human into the middle? Am I bringing you in at the beginning or am I bringing you in at the end? So Agentic AI is starting to do more automated work rather than you having to prompt it up front. Now, there are use cases for both, and there's a number of different patterns. In my talk tomorrow, there's 4 patterns that we're going to talk about. And now what we're starting to hear is we're hearing things around swarms of agents. So there's so many different LLMs that are out there. Different LLMs are optimized for different types of questions. So when you're prompting an LLM, some may be really good for an assistant, some may really be good for an agent. So being able to have these swarms where they're sort of talking to one another is going to become critical in the future.
It's getting really exciting out there. With regards to agentic AI, obviously there's a couple different variations of that. What kind of project would you recommend someone get started with if they wanted to dive into the agentic AI world?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different areas. If you are, let's say, working in the open source world, I would stick to open source tooling. You're probably going to want to use something like LangChain or LangGraph, and you might want to have something like LangFlow. It's a really easy sort of WYSIWYG drop-in play. There's another one called N8N. It's another good one where you can just plug in an agent, give you a graphical workflow. And then you've got to learn about certain terms. So you're going to have to learn about what a RAG is, which is augmenting. You're going to have to learn how to do proper prompt. You're going to have to understand the difference between a system prompt and a user prompt. You're also going to want to have things where you can plug in context. So you're going to learn about model context protocol, which is basically a way to call APIs from different systems. So maybe you want to query your Workday system or your GitLab instance. Those kinds of things are where MCP comes in as sort of a way to plug in many keys, but being able to get the LLM to be able to respond back. So I would use something like Olama on your local desktop, and then it's choose a language. There's lots of different frameworks out there. Python seems to be the most popular, but you can find frameworks for anything. TypeScript, Java, Rust. I've played around with a lot of them. If you want to real kickstart, you can actually use other agentic AI solutions to help you learn agent development. So there's an open source project called Cline, CLINE, and it will be a plugin into VS Code, and you could actually ask it and say, could you build me an agent? And it will go off and build an agent. So it'll ask you what things you want to connect and how you want to run it. And that will be something I'll actually be demoing tomorrow in my talk.
Awesome, man. That's really cool. So there's a lot of discussion around AI's role in developers and how they play with that. Do you think AI is going to replace developers eventually?
I do not. So you know my background. So I was a teacher at Athens Drive High School here in Wake County, and then I was an adjunct professor at NC State. One of the things I think that we've missed, that was 25 years ago, and I don't think we've done a great job. We've done a great job teaching syntax. Syntax is going to go away. This is just like what you're learning around people that can put in the earbuds and they can travel to another country and somebody speaks Japanese to you and it just automatically translates it. That's what these agentic AI solutions are basically going to do. You know Python really well, but this program's written in Java. You're not going to need to know the syntax. But what you are going to have to learn, you're going to have to learn proper architecture, proper patterns. You're going to have to learn how to use these agentic AI solutions. They have a tendency to do something called hallucinations. And what will happen is if you have a very large code base, you can't pass the entire code base into the agentic AI solution. So it uses usually something called ripgrep, which there's different ways of using ripgrep, but it's basically just searching through using like grep like you would use on a Linux machine, just looking for files with certain patterns, things like that. So you're going to have to, it'll be a little bit different way of working, but we're still going to have to prompt these, give it the right context, give it the right information, or it's going to build you something. It'll answer the solution. It's not necessarily going to do it in the most efficient way. It's not going to notice that there's duplication of code. It's not going to know that, oh, by the way, there's a framework or something else that your company's already developed that could already do a lot of stuff. It'll just generate more code for you. So we're going to have to learn how to mix and match. So there's going to be a lot of human in the middle interventions. The question's going to be is who's going to initiate it. So you're going to have probably more senior devs, architects who are going to do a lot of the agentic development. And then you're going to have a lot of people on the other side who are going to be consumers of the agentic AI, who are going to be reviewers, editors of the stuff that's being generated. I think that you've got a good 10 years before we get to a point where I can just trust the code that's being written and say it now knows everything that it needs to know. Context windows are always increasing. Tokenization's always improving. So who knows when we'll get to that point, but I don't see us replacing them. Also, one of the other things, anybody who's out there, if you're not doing things around critical thinking and problem solving, that's something that AI is not going to replace. You at least have to know where to start.
So Lee, I wanted to kind of follow up with that. What are some skills that developers should be aware of with this new AI world that we're in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get it a lot, Jason. So what we're seeing right now is you got to remember software development is not an individual sport. It's a team sport. So it's going to be really important for you to be able to show how you work in a team, how you collaborate with other people, how you can challenge assumptions without coming across as arrogant or as a know-it-all. But then on the other side, there's a bit of a gap that I'm afraid that we're starting to see is the people who have the experience, they're going to know what, let's say, good patterns look like. And the people who are coming out and just getting started, how am I going to go get started? So as an example, I was using one of the Agentic AI solutions, and as you look at the observer pattern, it's the only reason I knew it was generating good code is because of my experience. Somebody who's just coming out of college isn't necessarily going to know that. So we've got to really stop thinking about that syntax and really start teaching kids critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, knowing the patterns, things like that, and stop just teaching them syntax.
Got it. I hope everyone's taking good notes. So Lee, you've got 25 years of experience between teaching and technology. What's your advice to someone just getting started in open source?
Man, at All Things Open in the fall, I think I probably answer that question probably 100 times a day. There's so many people here with the wonderful universities that we have in this area. I think one of the things that people who are starting off in open source is not to be afraid to contribute. What a lot of people don't understand is there is an absolute hierarchy in open source. And I break it down from maintainer, so the people who start a project, they are the owners of that project. Then you've got contributors. These are sort of people that have contributed in the past. They've got standing within that community. Then there's areas called a collaborator and an observer. I don't want you to be an observer. Get active. The collaborator is something that we don't define well enough. This is something as little as opening up an issue. You found a bug. The other thing is if you find a bug, ask somebody in the community, where should I start to try to solve it? And if you're just sitting back and just, oh, you know what, I'm scared to get involved, you're going to find out. Don't expect immediate response. These people are not sitting in Slack waiting for you to ask a question. So being able to have a way where, hey, it might take 2 or 3 days before somebody responds to you, but having your name out there, and then if you're able to contribute a little bit of code. And again, this is where agentic AI is great. Plug in something that allows you to be able to search the code base and say, where do you think I should solve this particular bug? Go ahead and use it and try to make a suggestion. It may not be the right suggestion, but a suggestion of a starting point. I've had this happen in my career many times where I've gone ahead and I've recommended, hey, what if we added this code? And they come along and go, wow, that's a phenomenal solution, but we could get so much more value out of it if we did it in another way. And then what happens is my pull request on GitHub, they get destroyed, just closed, but then I can see the follow-on where there's a link to another issue, and then I see it helps such a broader set of community. And don't get discouraged if your actual change doesn't make it into the community. Any little bit of impact is a big impact.
Great advice. Kind of reminds me of I don't want to age myself going to the radio, but long time listener, first time caller concept, right? I think that we need to implement that more in open source, right?
Oh, definitely. The other places are just simple documentation. I mean, even with GitLab, you could go to GitLab and you can see a lot of areas of the documentation that says to be written. Go find that section in the docs and go ahead and one of the things, I'll put a plug out there right now. We've got a lot of people who are starting to use Carpenter, which is a way to manage Kubernetes clusters for GitLab pipelines. and we're looking for people to come and write documentation for it. Great place to start. You can also find both on GitHub and GitLab, there's a lot of open source projects that will have a good first issue. Go search for those as well, especially if it's a language that you want to go get a job in. If you're looking to get into Python, go to the Pandas library and see if they've got a good first issue that you could go work on. I mean, there's all kinds of places you can get started.
Lots of opportunity. All right, Lee, what's one tip, best practice, or advice that you'd like to share with the All Things Open community?
I only get one?
I mean, yeah, we want to keep these, short and sweet for people. Attention spans,
I think the one thing that I tell everybody is always be learning. Yeah, it's hard. I know people have family, they've got kids, they've got things. Even when we worked together at Red Hat, I mean, I always really valued our partnership when we worked there. I mean, I remember I would ping you at like 8 o'clock at night and there would be a response. And I mean, I would be working at home because I had kids at home and you had kids at home, and we were trying to figure out like what's the right working arrangement. And those are the things, if you're willing to take that time instead of watching a TikTok video or doing something else where you're binge watching something on Netflix, man, take that hour and go learn something new, learn a new language, learn a new technology, do something, because that's what's going to really stand out to an employer. They love it when you've got a love of learning, because that means you're going to want to problem solve. You're going to sit back. You're not just going to be sitting there just trying to get a paycheck. You're constantly trying to make yourself better.
Learn something new every day, y'all. Lee, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason.